coming to you live. It's In the Know with Mo. And now, here's your host, Mo Vela.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to In the Know with Mo. It's so good to have all of you with us this week. It's good to be back. I was not with you last week, and I apologize. I am in the incredible, in Beantown, they call it. I'm in Boston, Massachusetts today, and it's just wonderful to be broadcasting from Beantown here. This is an amazing city with incredible historic impact in our nation, and just first class. So this week's Moe-ment of Truth, we all know that's spelled M-O-E-M-E-N-T. This week's Moe-ment of Truth is in honor and in a recognition of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. The more I have meditated and thought about this month and breast cancer awareness, I come to the conclusion every time it comes to my mind that there isn't any person on this earth, including every one of us, who has not been impacted by a woman. Our moms, our sisters, our wives, our aunts, our grandmothers, our teachers, many of our teachers, our colleagues, and so on and so forth. So on behalf of every woman in the world, I urge all of us to get involved in donating to any effort to eradicate breast cancer. My guest today has been personally impacted by breast cancer. We will, if he cares to, we'll discuss that today. But in my Moe-ment of Truth today, I just wanted to encourage all of you, all of my listeners and all our viewers, to please get involved, volunteer, donate, and above all, affirm, celebrate, and love every woman in your life, and make sure she knows that you believe in her, and that, God forbid, if she ever is confronted with this or any other illness, that we will all stand by their side and have their back. So on that note, let's get to the show. Again, welcome to In the Know with Mo. I'm Mo Vela, your host. I always say to all of you, every show is very special to me because I don't invite anybody on that I don't care about very deeply, and that I don't want all of you to hear their story. So let me bring on this week's guest. This is an extremely special guest for me. This is a very successful attorney, a very, very, very beloved public figure down in my home area. He is the CEO of the largest healthcare system in the southern tip of Texas, Valley Baptist Health System. He is the former county Democratic chair of Cameron County in South Texas. And above all, and most importantly, happens to be my little brother. So my guest this week, special guest, is my brother, Manny Vela. Manny, welcome to In the Know with Mo.
Thank you, Mo. I could not be more honored to be part of the show today. And going back to your opening commentary around Breast Cancer Awareness Month, what I'll add just up front for everybody who's listening and watching today is the diagnostic tools we have available today are the number one tool we have to fight breast cancer. And so if you've not done so and you're in the need for a diagnostic test, by all means, get it scheduled. And men should not lose sight of the fact that men can get breast cancer as well. It's predominantly it's a female issue, but however, there are some men who get breast cancer. So from that perspective, everybody use this month to go get your diagnostic testing done, because that is absolutely by far the best tool that we have. Early detection.
Thank you for adding to my Moe-ment of Truth, because I completely left off go get tested, right? And of course, self-examination and mammograms and all the diagnostic tools available. Thank you so much. Spoken like a true CEO of a hospital system, right? And you have your pink tie on in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month without even knowing that was going to be my Moe-ment of Truth. You really are my brother.
Well, I appreciate that. And I'll go back to being honored to be part of the show today. I could throw out there, yes, Gimple, which is it's about time that I'm part of this show. However, we're not going to go in that direction today. We're going to take the high road.
Oh, you can go in whatever direction you want to. This is the beauty of having my own show.
I'm just joking. The reality is,
to our viewers and listeners, we do want to tell them the comical exchange yesterday when I invited Manny to be my guest, and his first response was, "Bro, who canceled?" And so our producer, Mark Grimaldi, as I always do at the onset of every show, I failed to do it today. Great segue. Thank you to Mark Grimaldi, my producer, the best producer I have ever dreamed of having. Leslie Marshall and I share him, and we are the luckiest people in the business to have Mark Grimaldi. And to Dave Compton, my assistant, I couldn't do any of this without his assistance and his support as well. So
That's
I
awesome.
always thank them every week. Manny, one of the things we do at In the Know with Mo is that we don't just talk about where you are today, right? The CEO of this major hospital system, kicking ass, saving lives. We're going to get to all of that probably in our last segment. But I always like to go back to the beginning because too often I think people think, oh, he's just, look at him. He's good looking. He's smart as hell. He's articulate, CEO of this hospital system, 4 beautiful children, amazing wife, just this perfect life. But I like to go back because it didn't just happen, right? It didn't just all of a sudden you woke up one day and you had 4 children, a beautiful wife, and CEO of a hospital. So let's go back out the entire show. We always try to share life lessons. So you're going to hear me quite often say, what did you learn from that part of your life? What would you impart to people listening and watching? So bear with me. And I do say this to every guest. I'm going to say it to my own brother. If there is a question I ask that you do not feel comfortable answering, you absolutely have the right to say, I'd rather not go there. And we respect that and we honor that on our show. So let's go back to the beginning, because you know what? Let's not assume anybody knows anything about our childhood.
Sure.
Plus, I think your perspective is going to be somewhat different, a little different than mine. And so I'd love for you to share with our audience. So take us back to the beginning. What was, in your eyes, what was your childhood like?
Sure. And if I could just ask for this favor, at some point in time, I do want to come back to Breast Cancer Awareness Month and the reality of my wife, your sister-in-law, Amy, getting diagnosed last September. And also, while I have the chance, Mo, I want to thank you for hosting Manny Mac and Ashley. At some point, we'll talk about the family, I hope. But I want to absolutely throw that out up front that you had them on the show previously. And that was to become more aware of autism-related issues, et cetera. And so I thank you for all of that. But if we can come back to that, then we'll dive in on the childhood.
Absolutely, we will.
I think you've heard me say that we were raised amongst giants. We were raised in an environment with our parents and with our aunts and uncles, folks who were so heavily engaged in our communities when we were growing up. That the reality for us, and I know you feel this way, is we came out of our childhood into our early adulthood and into professional careers, et cetera, with the simple concept of that's part of our responsibility is to engage with our communities. And so, as you know, and then just referencing the book that you wrote, right, and sharing your childhood memories, all of that brought back memories for me while I read the book, and it was very cathartic and inspirational, by the way, to basically share your perspective at that point in your life when you wrote it, looking back towards some troubling times and a lot of amazing times, but some challenging times. And so I know you talk a lot about inspiration and those kind of things, and you need to know that reading your book inspired me and reminded me, quite honestly, of the fact that we all face challenges, right? And the reality is, how do you address those challenges? Where do you come out on the other side? All of those kind of things. And so back to our childhood, as you know, we were raised as a very tight-knit family with incredible memories of traveling to Colorado every year. The first trailer, if you remember, was a little 12-foot Shasta.
I don't know how we survived in there, but we did.
2 adults and 5 children in this little 12-foot Shasta, and then we ended up with an Airstreamer later on. But those are very fond memories that we had, fishing in the lower Laguna Madre down here, hunting at Laguna Seca, the old family ranch, hunting at the King Ranch, those kind of memories. But overall, the memories that are pervasive to me and for me are of our family being together, absolutely, truly enjoying each other's company, loving each other, really with no boundaries in that regard. And then going with that foundation out to the world, right? To go receive our educations. For me, it was 2 years at Stephen F. Austin State University, following you there, and then followed you to the University of Texas in Austin to finish my undergrad, and staying in Austin to finish my law school career.
Yeah.
And coming back.
So you used a really powerful word that I use quite often on the show, foundation. And so in many ways, I did an interview 2 days ago with Hispanic Executive Magazine. And it's funny because they asked me the question I just asked you, right? And I said something about this foundational values, set of values that mom and dad kind of instilled in us, right? And like you called it a responsibility, I felt like there was almost an expectation of us somehow being of service, right? To our community, in whatever capacity we chose, we just knew we had to serve, right? And so we are about to go to our first break. The time flies on this show, by the way. So I apologize that we got to take our first break. Obviously, folks, you don't want to go anywhere. Wait for us on the other end of this. We'll be right back with my brother, Manny Vela. We're going to talk a lot more about a lot of topics. Don't leave.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping, taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hey sis, missed you this morning. Kim told me you weren't feeling well, so I'm just doing a self-care check.
Oh, thank you, friend.
How you doing?
Girl, listen, my energy was so low because I didn't eat breakfast when I got up, so I had to miss virtual yoga with y'all.
Trust me, I understand.
But I'm doing much better now that I've eaten, so I'm back on track.
Great. In that case, let's get some steps in tonight. I'll come over and we can walk around the lake.
Sounds good. Appreciate you being in my business, too. Now, let me get in yours. Did you check your blood pressure today?
I did that and my squats, okay?
Okay.
High blood pressure is not going to be my...
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1933. That was the day Detroit anarchist labor leader Joseph Labate died. Born in Paw Paw in 1850, Joe was born to descendants of French immigrants and grew up among native Potawatomi peoples in southwest Michigan. He became a printer, joining the local typographical union number 18, and worked for the Detroit Post and Tribune. He was an early leader of the Socialist Labor Party. By 1878, Joe organized the first Knights of Labor Assembly in Detroit. He served as the first president of the Detroit Trades Council and founded the Michigan Federation of Labor. He wrote tirelessly for a number of labor and socialist newspapers across the country. He embraced anarchism and soon produced a popular column titled Cranky Notions. Labate enjoyed the company and correspondence of radical labor leaders like Emma Goldman, Albert and Lucy Parsons, Eugene V. Debs, Benjamin Tucker, Terence Powderly, and others of the progressive era. He was often referred to as the gentle anarchist for his insistence on nonviolence and distancing from those anarchists who advocated the use of violence as an acceptable tactic. Labate was also known to never throw out any printed material relevant to labor or radical causes. His biographer, Carletta Anderson, notes that the story of his life, deeds, and thoughts is abundantly revealed through the treasure trove of letters, periodicals, clippings, manuscripts, booklets, photos, and circulars once stored in his attic and now housed in the Labate collection of the University of Michigan. His stockpile of documents of social protest has proven a boon to scholars, enabling them to study the early labor movement in detail. When he died at the age of 83, he considered this to be his legacy.
Welcome back, everybody. So good to have all of you with me this week on In the Know with Mo. I'm Moe Vela, your host. I always love it when I get to be here, and I'm sitting in Boston, Massachusetts with my very special guest. This is a very special show for me. My younger brother, Manny Vela, is my guest. He's the CEO of Valley Baptist Health System down in the southern tip of Texas, largest healthcare system in South Texas. I'm so deeply proud of his leadership. Former Cameron County Democratic chair and a very successful attorney in his career before taking over the leadership of the hospital system. So Manny, we were talking about our childhood, and I appreciate you sharing it from your perspective. Ironically, or maybe not so ironically, it's very similar to my recollection. As I said in an interview the other day, it was idyllic, but in my case, as you pointed out, that I share in my book and anywhere I go, was also filled with challenge, right? But I think the point that we're both making is that there are many people who realize that, that we had an idyllic childhood, right? That we had two incredible parents who are beloved, daddy in his memory and mom still with us. But I don't like anybody to ever think that our life was perfect in any way, right? Because nobody's, and so I don't like people to feel like that we pretend that it was in any stretch of the imagination. So moving on to the next stretch of your career, you talked about you went to law school at the University of Texas, graduating from the University of Texas. Obviously, you and I share that beloved orange blood of the Texas Longhorns. But so tell our audience, you finished law school and then you did something, in my opinion, that was extremely admirable, because down where we grew up is not a metropolis area. It's not the most cosmopolitan area in the world. It's not the Paris of the United States. So you went home. Why?
Yeah,
you could have gone to any law firm in the world. Why'd you go?
I honestly didn't even contemplate doing anything other than coming back and join Dad's one-man firm. And learning how to practice law under his tutelage. And I smile when I say that, because by the time I got back to Harlingen, Dad was not a real good teacher. But the reality is he would introduce me to his colleagues at the courthouse.
Yeah.
And these were younger attorneys he had taken under his wings when they got back to the Valley to start practicing law. And they took it upon themselves to take me under their wings. So they paid it forward.
Yeah.
And now what Dad did teach us was how to live our lives. So he taught by example.
Yeah.
Integrity meant everything to him. Credibility meant everything to him. His word meant everything to him. And in the practice of the law, if you have that foundation, you're going to be successful, right? Yeah. And I'm not talking about just monetarily successful. That's not the gauge for me. The success also means, did you advocate on behalf of your clients to the best of your ability, et cetera? And so came back, and I have to throw in and give my wife, Amy, credit right here, because Amy was raised in the Washington, D.C. area, and truly did not look back in regards to moving down to the Valley to start our careers. Amy's a pharmacist. And so she started here at Valley Baptist as a pharmacist when I started practicing law. And I was in practice, sharing space with Dad or practicing with him for about 15 years. It was an amazing 15 years. I did a lot of jury trial work. I did a lot of bench trial work. If you recall, when I, even through law school and coming out of law school, I was a very shy individual. I was not real confident to a very large degree. And I started trying cases, and all of a sudden you start building the confidence. And even more importantly, I developed, I'd like to think I developed a sense of how best to communicate with folks, right? And all different kinds of folks.
Well, I want to stop you for just a second, because there's about 4 ginormous life lessons that I just learned from you right there. One, that I think this is going to shock a lot of people who know you when they watch the show, that you were ever shy at some point. And let me reiterate, you were extremely shy. I don't want to embarrass you, but I mean,
it's the truth.
No, but it's important because it's a life lesson for people watching who may be introverted or shy. And it's important for them to see that we can grow, that we can still be introverted, but still lead. right? And I think you're the perfect, brilliant example that you could have been shy. You may still be somewhat introverted, but you are an effective, immeasurable, incomparable leader. And I remember growing up, we had to write on a chalkboard for you
Okay, now that's
right?
that's embarrassing.
No,
that's embarrassing.
We had to write for you what you were going to say when the phone rang.
I was joking. It's the truth.
Right?
I mean, it's painful, but
And
it's
so,
the truth.
no, it's not. It's not. It's just, it's like who we are, and it's part of our evolution. And I think that's one of the lessons. The other one I heard you is this resiliency, right? Like you got thrown into the deep end of the pool as a young attorney because, like you said, Dad did not have the patience for tutelage at that point, and you just had to go learn. And what a lesson for young anythings listening to the show, right? Just get in there, right? Go get some confidence, believe in yourself. And the third thing I heard from you that I want to reiterate are ethics, integrity, and keep your word, right? It doesn't matter whether you're CEO of a hospital or on a hit streaming reality show or worked at the White House or whatever, your wife being a part of it. And last thing I'm going to say is, you know what? I think I admire Amy more than you for going back to the Valley. Now that you put it that way, I mean, seriously.
Agreed. I completely agree.
Incredible. And I apologize. The Eyes of Texas just played because I thought I turned my phone off and I didn't. I apologize. But the Eyes of Texas always reminds my brother and I. So you then 15 years you practice law with Dad, and then you get a phone call. What happened? How did you end up going to be general counsel at the hospital?
Yeah, interesting turn of events. During my practice, I was pretty successful, and primarily on the criminal defense side. That's a lot of my jury trials were criminal defense trials, and I had a very high acquittal rate. My percentages were north of 92, 94%. And I went home one day and I told Amy, I said, listen, I don't necessarily want this to be my legacy. It's not a bad legacy, but I just didn't want that to be my personal legacy for our children. And I'll emphasize again, it's not a bad legacy. You're representing folks and making the state meet their burden, et cetera, the United States government. So that's very admirable. And almost simultaneously to that conversation, the then CEO of Valley Baptist, Jim Springfield, called and asked if I would like to interview for the role of general counsel, noting that they just created the role here at Valley Baptist. And I said, absolutely, except I don't have any corporate background or healthcare background. And he goes, I'm not worried about that. I think you're the perfect person we're looking for. And so I came and interviewed, was offered the position, and started as general counsel for Valley Baptist on September 1st, 2003. And I had a lot of help and support, not only internally, but I had external help from first Fulbright Jaworski and then my friends at Boyer and Miller out of Houston. And those folks really were able to assist me with ultimately my role was to manage the affairs, legal affairs of the house.
And when we come back from this next break, you catapulted years ago to CEO and now have led the hospital in incomparable growth. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and COVID and the healthcare system and a lot of other things. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Can I touch this? Where does sand come from? Is this tree good for climbing? What happens if I mix these two things together? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Storing your guns securely is the best way to prevent family fire, including unintentional shootings. For more information on safe gun storage and ways to keep your family safe, visit endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org.
What do we keep in the attic? What's this thing called? Can I ride my bike backwards?
Like I said, kids are curious. It's up to us to keep them safe. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together. I gotta tell you, I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too, but I'm glad we are.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and life experiences come together through conversation, and it feels good.
Wow, your story is so...
Interesting?
Yeah.
When people actually sit down, talk, and listen to one another, they can break down boundaries and connect as human beings. At lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep, you can listen to amazing, life-changing conversations and find simple tools to start a conversation of your own.
I know one thing. This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope, too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together by having the courage to start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
Exciting news from Wall Street. Our wealth markets are booming. Everything from the Dow Jones average to gold prices are rocketing to new records, showering us with wealth from above. Oh, wait, maybe you're one of the big majority of workaday Americans who don't own stocks or gold, so maybe you're not celebrating Wall Street's big boom. But just chill, because conventional corporate wisdom assures us that the wealthy will invest their good fortunes in enterprises that eventually will produce trickle-down gains for everyone. Excuse my rudeness, but let's take a peek at how those who are reaping today's big buck bonanza are actually investing that wealth. Look at Wall Streeters themselves. The big banks have been making money like bankers, with their stock prices zooming up by 28% just since January. So how are these moneyed elites spending this windfall? Not by making job-creating investments, but by simply giving the money to their big shareholders, including their own top executives, nearly all of whom are already among the richest people on earth. The main way they do this is through a sleight of hand called a stock buyback. The honchos simply cash out the bulk of that 28% increase in the value of the bank's stock price, using that money to repurchase more of their bank's own stock from lesser shareholders. Hocus pocus, this manipulation artificially pumps up the value of the stock these insider shareholders already own, making each of them even richer than rich, although they've done absolutely nothing to earn this increased wealth. This is Jim Hightower saying, it's not a small scam. J.P. Morgan Chase is now sinking $30 billion into buying its own stock. Wells Fargo is shifting $18 billion into the scheme, and Bank of America is throwing $25 billion into its buyback. Wall Street bankers are the biggest robbers in America.
It's amazing.
That's crazy. That is amazing.
I'm so, okay. Welcome back, everybody, to In the Know with Mo. I'm Moe Vela, your host, and so glad you're with us this week. My special guest this week is my younger brother. I keep saying younger brother because I want everybody to know that he is a year younger than I am, and I'm not going to make any comments about looks or anything. Speaking of that, this is something you and I, Manny, I don't want to digress here because we're going to get back to you being the CEO of the hospital. I want to talk about COVID, a little bit more serious topic in this segment.
Sure.
But before we go there, you and I have always talked about this because it was something, we both talked about how everybody has trauma, right?
Yes.
Everybody's had challenges in life. And I thought you were brilliant in saying something, you said it a little differently than I do, but I've often been heard saying that we all have trauma. And the difference between all of us is where we are in the healing process, right? And so you call them challenges and how you're dealing with them. It's the same concept. And, I remember growing up, right? You and I have talked about this so many times that people would see you and I side by side and they would look at me and say, what happened to you? Your brother's so hot, right? Or what happened to you? Your brother's so handsome, remember? And I would get that. And I'm bringing it up because I want to remind my audience that here we are inseparable as brothers. We've never been competitive, been competitive. We have always supported one another. We have always been proud of one another.
Agreed.
But I bring that up because I want to remind my audience that words matter. It's something I try to bring up in every show to remind people words matter, that when we say that to a child, it can impact them and it can absolutely harm them their whole life if they don't have the privilege of healing. So I just want to bring that up. And yes, you're still better looking than I am, but I'm only going to say that the only thing I might excel at is humor. Maybe I'm a little funnier, and just maybe. I don't.
I can't let you get away with that. That's just ridiculous. You've always been a good-looking dude. But you hit the nail on the head. The immense pride that we have in your accomplishments, it's immeasurable, Mo. My children, Amy, the whole family is so proud of everything you've accomplished, and you've inspired us, right? To do better, to be better. So, and you know, on the words matter, you're absolutely right. Those were uncomfortable times. But you got a lot of compliments as well. You just have a tendency to forget about those.
Well, listen, the thing is, the moral of the story was words matter. And the second piece is that I have my brother on, and I'm so proud to have him on and all his accomplishments, because we don't compete. And I know you think that's crazy that I keep repeating that, but you don't know how many years in Washington, in my 2 White House tenures, where people would come up to me and say, well, your brother, right? And I always say, isn't he amazing? Because you are beloved. You really you are beloved. Like, people, there's an adoration for you. And I want to talk about this, but I'm going to put that for a second. We're going to get back to that, because there is something there. Like, there's something that you do, that there's something about you that creates this adoration in people of you. And I want to talk about that because it's a great lesson for all of us to learn. But let's talk about you being the CEO of the hospital for a second. You have probably, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that in all your tenure as being the CEO, for how many years now you've been CEO?
Since 2012.
Okay, so almost 10 years. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the last 2 have been the most challenging.
Yeah, they by far have been the most challenging. And I do want to go back, and I appreciate the kind words, but you probably haven't talked to everybody you could talk to in regards to, you know, their feelings about me. If in fact I've garnered any good positive feelings from the folks down here in our communities, it's quite honestly because I try to treat everybody with mutual respect, right? And a high level of respect, and that's part of the way we were raised.
And that's the lesson for our audience, right? Because you get back what Daddy and Mom taught us that. They taught us to love. Love freely, right? To treat people with decency and with the respect you just alluded to. And I think that if we put that out there, that's what I hear from about people saying about you. That's why they love you, because they're giving that back to what you gave them. And
that's nice.
Great lesson for all of our audience. You really are held in the highest regard. You know, I've never met anybody that doesn't just adore you. Really, I have.
That's nice.
And that's a testament to your heart and your ability to treat people, as you said, with respect, and most of all with equality. You've never talked down to people. You've never been condescending to people. You have always treated them exactly the way you would want them to treat you. And not to take it away from you, but Mom and Dad, we owe them a debt of gratitude for teaching us those values. Okay, CEO during COVID. Huge hospital system. My God, what has this been like? I can't even fathom.
Yeah. So let me lay this foundation for this part of the conversation. There's probably nothing else I can do professionally that will create the sense of pride I have in working with my team every day I come to work.
Yeah.
You hear the phrase often, I work with heroes. Sometimes it's used flippantly.
No,
it's not used flippantly for me. No. I work with heroes every day I come to work. My A team is the most amazing group of people I'll ever work with professionally, ever again in my life. Every single member of this team are nothing short of phenomenal.
Yeah.
So we've been dealing with COVID now about 19 months here at Valley Baptist in the Valley. And I'll tell you, we're just coming off of our third surge related to COVID. So the level of frustration is high for folks who have not yet gotten on the bandwagon in regards to what actually works the best, which is the vaccine. That's our number one tool. And then also in regards to utilizing the best practices that we all know works, right? The hand hygiene, the social distancing, all those kind of good things. The last 19 months have been the most challenging times in our healthcare lives. There's no doubt. For multiple reasons, COVID's at the top of that list. It's a blur to some degree looking back, but I have folks. There was a period of time. I'll just give you this. There was a period of time where members of the A team and I worked 56 straight days. Last July and August, we've had some form of support. We had an Army unit, a Navy unit, and strike force personnel from the state here, to the tune of about 200 personnel on our campus in Harlingen, where we were at the peak, the first surge. We still have some support from the state here by way of nurses and techs. But I'll tell you, through all of that, through thick and thin, my core staff has stuck with us, has stuck with this community, because their number one goal in life when they come to work is to make a difference in people's lives in a positive manner, and do so with as much empathy and compassion and commitment and dedication as they can muster every time they come to work. And you got to know, when they go home, they're dog tired.
Oh my God, I can't even, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. We are forgetting the psychological impact of our healthcare frontline workers.
Yeah.
We don't even know what the long-term impact.
That's right.
You as the CEO are going to have to deal with this for years to come.
Right.
This is not just going to be over when it stops surging.
No, the fortunate thing though is I have such a dedicated team at our hospitals down here, our 2 hospitals down here, that are so incredibly committed to this community that they're willing to tough it out as long as it takes, so that we can meet our mission statement of helping the folks in the Rio Grande Valley.
Let's call an ace and a spade, like Daddy used to say. They're risking their lives.
A lot of them are, depending on what function they
their
have.
Lives,
That's right.
Many of them.
Yeah. So you can imagine, and I know that you would espouse this same concept or premise. There's not anything I've ever done in my life that I've done by myself that ends up in a positive conclusion, right? Yeah. Anything that we do here is because we have an amazing team that's aligned in regards to what we want to do. The only time I will single myself out is when I've messed up, and there've been plenty of times in that regard. But I tell people all the time too, when I mess up, it's not on mom and dad, it's on me, right? They taught me the rights and the wrong. But going back to the nice, kind words that you've used to describe me, I really appreciate that. But the reality is I am who I am because of Amy and our incredible children, son-in-law and daughter-in-law. And I am who I am because of the amazing team that I get to work with every day. I get to hear the thanks, because I'm out in the community probably more so than they are. I get to hear those, the kindness, the thanks, the gratitude. I try to relay it as best I can every chance I get, because our folks need to understand there are people who truly appreciate them. Well, the flip side to that is dealing with people who have not been vaccinated because they still think this is a hoax or whatever. And the affront that is to the people who are risking their lives.
I know. And so we go to our final break here with this to our audience. Damn it, get vaccinated. For God's sakes, get vaccinated. Manny's entire team, how do we thank them? We thank them by encouraging everybody we work with, everybody you go to church with, everybody that you're friends with, everybody you're related with to. Get them to go get vaccinated. That's how we thank our heroes. We'll be back in just a few minutes with Manny Vela.
What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up. Hold my hand.
No, you hold my hand.
Here we go.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more.
I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
"Hey, you got this. Just breathe." Hey, we're pretty good.
Yeah.
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. We show up differently, worship differently, and have found new ways to express our love and support to family and friends. But now there are vaccines, and they are the first step that lets us get back into the things we miss most, like spreading the word without spreading concern, girls tripping instead of solo sipping, brunching instead of late night munching, and talking smack with a side of mac and cheese. It's okay to have questions about COVID-19 vaccines.
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Is it safe?
Can I trust it?
What about pre-existing conditions?
Now get the facts. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when COVID-19 vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome to Code WAC, your podcast on America's broken healthcare system and how Medicare for All could help. I'm your host, Brenda Gazar. How are seniors meeting their needs for late life long-term care? What are California's biggest obstacles to winning single-payer Medicare for All, which would include long-term care? To find out, we spoke to Jody Reed, the executive director of the California Alliance of Retired Americans.
California Governor Gavin Newsom convened the Healthy California for All Commission, which was established to achieve access to health care for all Californians through a unified financing system, including single payer. What do you think about the commission?
I'm not a big fan of commissions to do policy in the first place. Sometimes it feels like that's just a way to push it off and not really deal with the real solutions and the real issues at hand, and to have some other body that comes up with a proposal that often, if it's not a politically feasible proposal, doesn't go anywhere and is an excuse for doing what we all know is the smartest, best thing to do. On the other hand, there is a huge issue in California and our ability to move a single payer or guaranteed healthcare plan, however you want to define it, forward. And that's the money. The biggest argument by the legislature and members of the public and the media is, how are you going to pay for it? And so the purpose of this commission, as stated by the governor, is to come up with, as you said, a unified financing plan. And we need that plan because that could answer the question that many legislators have used as their reason not to support and have hid behind it.
Get the full Code WAC story on progressivevoices.com and on the PV app. Catch all our episodes by subscribing to Code WAC wherever you find your podcasts. This podcast is powered by Heal California, a nonprofit that uplifts the voices of those fighting for healthcare reform around the country. Until next time, stay healthy.
In our last segment, I hate this part of the show because I get so into it and then we have to end. But we have a good 10 minutes left with my brother, Manny Vela, the CEO of Valley Baptist Hospital System in South Texas, my home area, where he and I had the pleasure and privilege of growing up. And so, Manny, I want to spend the last 10 or 11 minutes with you on, I know, some personal issues that mean a lot to you.
Yeah.
Let's start, first of all, with your amazing family. You have 4 incredible kids who I have the privilege of calling my niece and nephews, and their spouses are amazing. And your incredible wife, Amy, who let's talk about Amy's resiliency and her incredible survival instincts in beating breast cancer while we're in Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Yeah, and as you know, there's nothing more important to me than the family.
Yeah.
Nothing even comes close. I might get emotional right now. But the reality is, in the midst of the COVID crisis here at the health system, last September, Amy was diagnosed with breast cancer, bilateral breast cancer. And to put it mildly, it was a major kick in the gut for both of us, Amy in particular. We're fixing to go to MD Anderson next month for her 1-year follow-up. Her prognosis is really good. We feel very, very confident that she's in a really good position and well taken care of. But this this Breast Cancer Awareness Month for 2021 has a much different meaning to me, even than last year. Last year in October, we were right in the middle of surgeries and then getting the treatment plans prepared. And so now I've had a year to reflect on the absolute incredible crises that a diagnosis creates, not just for me, but for the children as well, for our children. Our children have been incredibly supportive to Amy, for Amy, with Amy. And I will tell you, to a large degree, because of COVID, all four were in Harlingen for a period of time during her treatment plan and beyond the treatment plan. And that could not have been more cathartic than it was for Amy's recuperation.
I was going to say, very important part of her recuperation, I'm sure, recovery.
Yeah. And so it's such a more personal, it's such much more of a personal issue now to the family. That we will do everything we can to always promote breast cancer awareness, right? And the tools that we have at our disposal.
Say one thing here, okay? That we are blessed, right? Our family, we're very blessed. You're blessed. You have worked your butt off because to be able to have access to the best healthcare. And of course, we're just thrilled that Amy's prognosis is so good and so strong because she's an amazing woman and such an important and valuable part of our family. I also want to recognize right now to our audience that we recognize that we're very blessed that we have access to the best healthcare system, but not every woman in the world has that access. And for them, we take what we've learned, I'm sure, and what the help you've gone through with your wife's challenge.
And that's a great point, Mo. And along those lines, you're absolutely right. It is about access, because I'm here talking and preaching about diagnostic care, but there are many people in our country who do not have access.
That's right.
So one of our pitches here in the state of Texas is the expansion of access. And we can't call it expansion of Medicaid because that's dead on arrival in Austin.
Get them all riled up.
But I don't care what you call it. I'm talking about adding access to folks who currently don't have access, because this is the reality. It's an economic argument, not just a moral one. Economically, when people can't or don't have access and can't go to the doctor and they wait, they are much more acutely ill a lot of times, and it costs a lot more money to try to help them. Right? So it's an economic and a moral art. They're joined at the hip. We just can't get traction in Austin with the leadership.
What you just said is very powerful. If you're not going to be driven by the moral aspect of it, then for God's sakes, be driven by the economic aspect of it.
That's right. At a minimum.
I can't imagine that the moral aspect is not enough, right? But for
Well,
God's sakes, if you're that much of an asshole, then, oops, I don't think I'm allowed to say that. Whoops, Mark, bleep that. Okay. Moving on to another topic, Manny, that I know is very important to you. You have dedicated over 2 decades, almost 3 decades of your energy toward combating and educating and informing people about autism, because your oldest son, Manny Mac, who was a guest on my podcast, he's been a guest, he and his wife, Ashley, were my guests here on In the Know with Mo. You have been really out there advocating on the topic of autism. And I am so proud of you for what you have done to enlighten and educate people, especially down in South Texas, because you single-handedly, in my opinion, changed our education system in Harlingen, Texas, by making them aware of the fact that we needed to provide more opportunities, more equal access. Again, here we go to access, right?
Well, and I'll tell you, I can't take that credit. I've got to give it to Amy. She was our liaison with
Always out there too.
Educational process.
Yeah.
But we both share in the knowledge that the more people are aware and know about autism, then the easier it will be to, one, accept folks who are on the autistic spectrum, understand folks on the autistic spectrum, and just as importantly, if not more importantly, help join the journey to try to address the characteristics that are created by being on the autistic spectrum. And so, and we're fortunate that Manny Mac allows us to do that, right? When he was a child, he was maybe not aware of those public efforts, but now he is, and he relishes the thought of us sharing this journey with him. Hence, you having him on your program, because
it was amazing.
And he is amazing, and Ashley's amazing, right?
We got incredible feedback and comments from that show. because we had somebody from the National Autism Speaks organization on the other half of that show, and it was an amazing, amazing show. And again, you and A did an incredible job reminding Manny Mac that he is equal, he is worthy, he's special, he's unique, just like all of us are, right? And
he'll be a successful actor.
I know he will.
Either voiceover or on the big screen.
He's already
has that
succeeding at it. Yeah,
I agree.
So listen, I want to move to a book that you just brought to my attention because it clearly has inspired you and it's motivating you. And so I know you wanted to share that with our audience. Written by Admiral McRaven, the former chancellor of our beloved University of Texas system. You want to tell us a little bit about the book and why it has impacted you?
Well, and a lot of your discussion points revolve around inspiration. Who inspires? How are you inspired? And that's why I wanted to reference Admiral McRaven. The book's called Sea Stories: My Life in Special Operations. He was 37 years as a Navy SEAL, 4-star admiral, led the raid that got Osama bin Laden, as well as many other special operation raids, etc. And to your point, most recently, UT Chancellor. So I got to work with Bill when he was the chancellor because of the role he played with the UTRGV, University of Texas Rio Grande Valley. And so I hadn't talked to the admiral in a long time, but when I read his book, it was such a compelling story. He's just such a true hero in regards to the patriotism, the level of commitment he had for our country. And so I reached out to congratulate him, and he sent me the nicest thank you note. And I reached out again last night because I was going to be on your show, and I said, I really want to reference your book, but I want your authority to quote you. Because what I told him in my note was, I'm so very scared about the risks to our republic right now, both from an external perspective, which has always been there, but even more importantly right now, and more demoralizing, the internal threat that exists in this country. And this was his response to me. And part of my commentary to him was, we each have a responsibility for being Americans to do what we can to be patriots, right? To support our republic and the democracy that is our form of government. And so this was his response, and this is his quote: I've been fortunate in my life to meet a lot of heroes, not all of them in uniform. Yes, these are challenging times, but I'm not worried because I've met the youth of America. I often talk about the kids from the RGV, the Rio Grande Valley, and how they inspired me. We're going to be fine. It may be a rough road, but we'll come out stronger than before. And I was so touched and moved.
That chokes me up.
It's just amazing. And the very fact that what inspired him and motivated him is the same thing that inspires and motivates us. And that's the folks in our communities, right? The kids at UTRGV, my children, your nephews, your nieces, your friends. And I think we don't have to look far any day to find inspiration. All I have to do is walk 2 steps out of my door, and I'm inspired by the people I work with. And even more importantly, if I want to truly be inspired, I will go to the floors where my frontline soldiers are working daily with the risks associated with COVID and the non-COVID risks as well, and to be inspired. And then the inspiration motivates me to want to come to work every day and do the best I can to support the folks that I'm working with.
We are at the end of our time, but let me say this. I promise you one thing for sure. I know inspire all of them. You're an incredible, effective leader. You have absolutely created a legacy second to none. I'm so deeply proud of you. I don't want to cry because Mark laughs, my producer, because I cry on every damn show. So every week I get choked up, but and your daughter Brianna is my most loyal watcher of this podcast. So she's gonna watch this and then she's gonna laugh because you choked up earlier and now I choked up. And so Brianna, to you, my darling, you know what? It just runs in the family, honey. Manny, I love you. I'm so deeply proud of you. Keep kicking ass. Mark, I thank you. Dave, thank you. To our audience, thank you so much. I'll see you next week on In the